This is big breaking news. Mass evacuations have been ordered in the United States. The military has been deployed. Hundreds of people are being evacuated on these planes right now. Homes are being destroyed from this, and this is devastating. We're also getting a major update from Trump on the war with Russia and Ukraine. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can see it says here that Trump is declining to give Ukraine long-range missiles as he and Zelensky are split over the future of the war. All right, we will get into more details of that in just a second. But you can also see here that mass evacuations are happening right now in the United States. These are U.S. citizens being evacuated, and their homes have been destroyed. And this is due to massive flooding that is happening. All right, a typhoon has hit Alaska, and this has caused devastating flooding on the western side. You can see here it says hundreds evacuated, homes destroyed, as Alaska communities reel from devastating flooding. This just happened over the past few days. It says on Thursday, 264 were evacuated by the Alaska National Guard. It says here in the aftermath of a destructive typhoon, historic floodwaters have destroyed remote communities in western Alaska, causing hundreds of evacuations that could continue for days, officials said. Quote, this is still a very much fluid situation. We are still in the process of evacuating hundreds of people from the affected towns. Michael Torres, the outreach branch chief for the state of Alaska, told ABC News on Thursday. All right, these devastating floods were fueled by remnants of Typhoon Halong, which originated in northern Philippine Sea on October 5th. This typhoon brought the massive flooding to these western regions of Alaska on Saturday night into Sunday, sweeping across the western coast of the state on Monday and dumping more than 6 feet of water in some areas. Along with coastal flooding, wind gusts reached 50 to 100 miles per hour in some of the 49 communities affected. So this is a big storm causing lots of flooding. You can see here some of the pictures. All right, this is in Kipnuk, Alaska, and homes are just being swept away. And this has been happening in Alaska quite a bit the past few months, actually. Okay, we had some glacier melt going on a few months ago, and that was causing massive flooding. We had warnings for Anchorage, Alaska as well too, because Mount Spur was under a yellow advisory alert for potential volcanic activity. Okay, there's also been a lot of earthquake activity in Alaska. We will get into details of that in just a second. I'll show you guys what's going on. Lots of earthquakes happening over the past 24 hours. But you can see here it says remote coastal towns have been hit the hardest by the floods, including Kipnuk, Alaska, which is about 500 miles away from Anchorage. So far, 264 people were evacuated on Thursday and 211 on Wednesday from these impacted communities by the Alaska National Guard, according to Jeremy Zedek from the Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And they're anticipating in some areas it could take up to 18 months for people to get back to their homes. All right, pretty devastating. You can see here it says the Alaska Air National Guard C-17 Globemaster 3 air crew evacuated approximately 300 displaced western Alaska residents from Bethel, Alaska, following Typhoon Halong on October 15th, 2025. So this has been going on the past few days. These mass evacuations, the military's in there, the National Guard's in there, and they're getting people out of there. Okay, it's kind of cool, right, to be in one of these planes, I'm not gonna lie, but the reason to be in there is devastating. Right, I wouldn't want that at all, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. and people's homes are being washed away and destroyed, and they're going to be left with nothing. It's not like they have like flood insurance or anything like that. Alaska's very kind of, it's still very off the grid there, right? To put it in a sense, literally and figuratively, you know, it's very loose there. The building regulations, the codes, the insurance requirements, all that stuff, it's not like there's a lot of laws regulating how you can build your house and where you can build it. So they are most likely just gonna lose everything, some of these people. So very sad. And Alaska is experiencing a lot of extreme weather recently, right? And you can see here it says at least 2,000 people from rural Alaska have been displaced, according to the Alaska Community Foundation. Quote, Alaskans have already come together to raise more than $1 million in support, and the fund is still growing. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said on Thursday that the U.S. Coast Guard rescued 38 people from the flood and helped evacuate, quote, 28 people from a temporary shelter. The Coast Guard continues to support the state of Alaska's response efforts and impacted communities, Noem said on X on Thursday. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy announced on Thursday that he signed an application for a presidential disaster declaration asking President Trump to, quote, declare a major disaster for Alaska as a result of the storm, and that will open up federal funding for them. You can see here 39 different earthquakes have hit Alaska over the past 24 hours. So there's been a lot of activity in Alaska, and they just keep getting hit over and over, right? There's been lots of flooding. There's been lots of glacial melt. There's been lots of permafrost melt, lots of earthquakes, lots of potential volcanic activity. All right, there's volcanic activity in the Aleutian Islands and volcanoes like Great Sikin in Alaska. So they're getting hit hard right now, all right? And you can see over the past 24 hours, the largest one that we've had has been a 5.5 in Afghanistan, a 5.3 in Indonesia, and a 5.1 here in Alaska has actually hit. All right, you can see here, this is in the Aleutian Islands in Unalaska, and there was a tsunami worry at first. Okay, there wasn't any threat, it was determined, but initially there was a worry. Okay, they put out a tsunami alert. You can see here that there is no tsunami danger, but when they have these big coastal earthquakes, they have to put out tsunami alerts just so people know whether there's going to be one or not. All right, so lots of activity in Alaska and lots of activity in the continental United States as well too. You can see here 124 earthquakes have hit in the continental United States, and even Texas is getting a lot of activity. 31 earthquakes in frame right now with Texas and Oklahoma. All right, and look at Southern California. It's getting lit up right now with a lot of earthquakes. You can see, including Las Vegas, 49 earthquakes here in the Southern California area. So places are getting hit hard, all right, and that's why these evacuations are happening. Let's listen to this really quick, and then we'll get into more details of Trump and Zelensky, their meeting that they had earlier today. But let's listen to this video here to get a few more details. And they're saying people might not be home for 18 months. All right, that's a long time. And that's like, what do you do with that? How do you recover from that? It's pretty devastating news. Let's listen to this.
Overnight, hundreds of residents in storm-blasted western Alaska airlifted to safety. People plucked from their flood-ravaged homes across an enormous remote area. The largest airlift in Alaska history follows this weekend's massive storm surge and 100-mile-per-hour winds fueled by Typhoon Halong, washing entire parts of towns into the Bering Sea, and it has left one person dead and 2 missing so far. More than 6 feet of water in some parts.
It sounded like a lot of stuff was just hitting the house. Everything in my house was shaking.
In the town of Kipnuk, this drone video shows what now looks like a muddy bog. Elsewhere, piles of homes and boardwalk mashed together. Remote coastal towns hit the hardest, most residents forced to evacuate to Anchorage. The Alaska Air National Guard packing about 300 residents into the C-17, including children, the elderly, and these dogs. The C-17 touching down at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, and families pouring out, carrying those bundles, pushing the elderly in wheelchairs and onto buses to escape towns that are now uninhabitable.
It's a nightmare what we went through.
Tristan Carl watched his uncle's home swept away.
I saw my cousin and my nephew in there, and I never heard panicking or yelling like that ever before.
Glenn Charlie grateful his family's okay.
The buildings, whatnot, could be replaced, but a life cannot. Life cannot be replaced.
And one of the reasons this is such a massively complex rescue operation is the tyranny of distance in Alaska. It is 500 air miles from the affected areas to Anchorage, and officials tell me with temperatures dipping below zero in many of the affected areas, it is a race against time to get people out of those saturated homes and to find the missing.
Yes, so many complicating factors there. Matt Gutman for us. Thank you. We appreciate it. Let's get right to Ginger now with more on the extraordinary weather conditions that led to this situation in Alaska.
Yeah, it's really quite a journey. That typhoon Halong, when it was south of Japan, was the equivalent of a Cat 4 hurricane. But then it quickly decreased in intensity. It became this kind of low pressure system, got caught up in upper level lows, and a strong jet stream pushed into southwestern Alaska. And that is what made it, on top of the Bering Sea being very warm. So here's what happened. This region gets that push of water like a bulldozer pushing at the coast, a record 6.5 feet plus of storm surge. So the water starts moving buildings, and that's where all that panic came from. Winds were gusting some 50 to 100 miles per hour. And guys, these communities have been warned for decades about increasing flood risk.
All right, so you heard that there. Pretty serious for the people in Alaska, and pray for them there. And donate if you want to. All right. It says here that Trump also declines to give Ukraine long-range missiles as he and Zelensky are split over future of war. It says U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky were split over the future of the war in Ukraine following their third sit-down at the White House Friday. Trump and Zelensky met for several hours alongside their top aides Friday in what was described to CNN by several people familiar as a tense, frank, and at times, quote, uncomfortable discussion. Trump made clear to Zelensky in a, quote, direct and honest conversation that for now, the Ukrainian leader would not receive the long-range missiles that can reach far into Russia that he was seeking. One official said Trump was under the impression that Ukraine is seeking to escalate and prolong the conflict and is worried about potential losses during an upcoming harsh winter. Shortly after the meeting ended, Trump pushed for a ceasefire along the current battle lines and called for an end to the killing. He told those around him that it was due to, quote, the realities of where the conflict stands, arguing there was too much devastation and too much killing, according to one official. Quote, both sides need to make a deal, another official said, arguing that conditions are only going to get worse. Zelensky casts the meeting as, quote, pointed conversation in a post to social media, but said its outcome, quote, can really help bring this war closer to an end. All right, so you heard that there, and this is most likely good news, right? Because these tomahawks are devastating, and if Trump gave these to Ukraine, then it would be a major game changer, okay? Hopefully, Putin comes to the table and is open to negotiations, and I think Trump wants to keep this as a leverage point too. Okay, I think it's still potentially on the table. All right, he's not giving it to him for now. I think he wants to have talks with Putin, and I think he actually did talk with Putin today. and it was relatively productive. We will see. He's pretty good at talking, but most of the time we don't see a lot of action. So hopefully this time is different. And I think Trump wants to keep these Tomahawk missiles as a leverage point too, to say, look, I did not give them to Ukraine, so why don't you give up something and let's come to the table, and I actually can still give them to Ukraine in the future, potentially, if things go wrong. All right, so he wants to keep that leverage, I believe, and hopefully this is a point for change. All right, we got this peace deal between Israel and Gaza, and maybe Trump can get another one. So let me know what you guys think down below. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up. I hope you have big blessings for your life and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.